Let's find out everything we can about hyenas right now.
Sometimes there are video games of which you just got the feeling they will crash and burn even before they are officially released. And Sega's HYENAS, developed by Creativ Assembly, is one of those games. In general, a game doesn't even have to be bad to fail. There are so many contributing factors. Great games by small studios that just don't have the ability to get the word out often fail. Or games that are really well made but just drown in a sea of other great games. Do you want to release a tactic shooter similar to Counter-Strike today? Congratulations, you probably got a failure on your hand. You gotta do something that mixes up the formula and have a decent advertising budget. I'm thinking of Valorant here. Often support for a game has to be astroturfed, meaning hype needs to be built artificially. You can't hope for it to occur organically. That is a once-in-a-million chance and only ever happens a few times. Fall Guys would be an example, or Among Us, but these games stick out. They are not Call of Duty Clone 502. Do you think Apex Legends would have been such a massive success if they had not blown millions on marketing? Getting big streamers to play it to create hype? And what constitutes a failure is a matter of definition. Does your game have a stable player base of 500 players every night or just on weekends? Cool, that is actually amazing. For many small creators, that is an overwhelming success. But that isn't so amazing if you blew $60 to $19 million making your game. I'm looking at EA's Anthem over there. So failure is a matter of perspective. There are games that are just created because a publisher sees another publisher having success with a certain type of game and deciding, we want a piece of that pie. And those games are off to a really bad start, because all too often you can't muster up the creative energy to come up with a good setting and story for why a game has to be designed this way. The financial motivation just shines through all too often. And that becomes particularly glaring if your game looks like a just taped together mess of elements you ripped out of other games, glued them together and then sprayed the entire construct in some vanilla tone of a story to give it that veneer of uniformity. But unfortunately you forgot that your glued together mess is made of vastly different materials and your story color peels off very quickly, since it didn't come to mind that acrylic paint doesn't stick to everything. You should have roughed up some surfaces and applied foundation here and there. But metaphors aside, Sega's HYENA is a mixture of other games. They themselves said it was inspired by Apex Legends. That three-person teams against other teams setting definitely speaks to that. But we also find a lot of Call of Duty, a lot of Escape from Tarkov and Hunt Showdown in there. There is plenty of PVEEEP shooter to go around. There are a bunch of new ones that are in development and scheduled to be released soon. But this isn't PvPvE, they have a completely different thing going on. It's something much grander.
Some people might call it PVEEVP, but we call it PVEEEVP, 3 times the gameplay.
Okay, that's a bit embarrassing, but embarrassing is a tone that this game gets on really well. But anyways, there are a lot of different games that are very similar about to be released soon. Marauders looks interesting. Science fiction, World War I in space, okay. I haven't been there, so I'm interested. Tell me more. Then we got The Finals, a game by a bunch of former Battlefield developers. Just PvP without the E, but you gotta gather stuff and bring it to some other point on the map before the other team does. And tell me if that doesn't sound familiar once you heard the story of HYENAS. Oh yeah, and they also got that construction PU foam gun. Looks an awful lot like the stuff they got in HYENAS. So what is the story behind HYENAS, other than looking really quirky and colorful? I'll make it short. Earth has been destroyed due to the reckless actions of billionaires. They fled to the planet Mars to have a fine life over there, and I guess Elon builds tunnels there now. And following the destruction of Earth, stuff from Earth has become a really valuable commodity, such as pop culture items like a Rubik's Cube, a Sonic the Hedgehog figurine, or an Atari console. And your ragtag crew of criminals is trying to take those valuable items away from the rich and powerful to make some money. Yes, Sega's story draped over the cobbled together gameplay construct is just self-referential advertising. Yay! We can fight for stuff that is mostly their intellectual property. How convenient. And they just couldn't help themselves to point everything out in the trailer.
Here's some more nods to pop culture. You'll recognise the classic Green Army Man and the hot dog fall guy.
You see that brick over there? Yeah, that's a reference to the Anchorman. Of course. Everyone remembers the brick.
Rick, where'd you get a hand grenade? I don't know.
I'll quote one of the developers. Since destroying capitalism is a running theme of HYENAS, the game won't have any microtransactions. Well, I'm very happy to hear that microtransactions won't be a thing. Pretty nice. Just the announced in-app purchases on Steam make me a bit skeptical. Oh, wait. What are you saying? You want me to be political for a moment? Alright, sure, I'll be political. So the game is about destroying capitalism, alright? Do you actually fight the system that allows humanity to be so divided, forcing a large majority to live in slums while the upper part of society lives in such abundance that things like a Funko Pop become something of value in a post-apocalyptic world? Or is it rather that you just use it as a backdrop for your shooter that actually revolves around poor people fighting each other for the crumbs that the rich left over? Cynical minds may call this just a status quo setting in space. You could let this game take place on Earth today, in the slums of Rio or in a landfill in Somalia. Just adapt it a little bit. From what I have seen, I remain skeptical about the anti-capitalism of a product that is sold to me by a giant corporation. And what have I seen? A lot, actually. Some beta tester was dumb enough to breach their non-disclosure agreement and upload about an hour of gameplay onto the internet. Thank you. What have I seen? Well, a lot of skins for you to purchase for your hero, but not just skins, also actual heroes to purchase. All with in-game currency, and if my eyes don't deceive me, I have seen what looks like a counter for a premium currency. If that's actually it, well then, hallelujah. HYENAS won't be a free-to-play game, so they've said. You pay up front and then you can buy stuff in-game. The developer's track record speaks to that. Thinking of the promise of no microtransactions? Well, what do you define as a microtransaction? I hope the Steam store page won't be a bad omen, revealing that interview to have been a lie. The game is built around pop culture stuff. The characters are colorful and wild. That in itself isn't bad. But if your characters don't need to follow a particular design, then anything goes when it comes to selling customizations and skins. Fortnite can sell you a dinosaur skin next to a soldier, next to Spider-Gwen, next to a stormtrooper from Star Wars because it's a silly comic world and that really doesn't fall out of the ordinary there. The game is silly and quirky. The dancing anime gun in Call of Duty Warzone looks stupid and out of place because it clashes with the setting of Call of Duty. HYENAS deliberately sets the characters up to be silly and as wild as possible, so everything fits into that world. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing, it's just what you make of it, and it's just big potential for over-monetization. And you may think that our fox is cringe, particularly in that outfit from the video thumbnail, but that's just character customization. That's what the game is all about. If I won't be able to get a tail and some fox ears, I'd be definitely disappointed with the game. I mean, it looks like it's just made to sell me such stuff. If Call of Duty has weird anime girls, then a game called HYENAS has to have a fox, or at least an hyena tail. You don't need to tell me I'm cringe now. I know that. And wait until you actually play the game. Wait until you hear the game's dialogue. That is cringe. When you hear the announcer mention swag and your clout points for the 50th time, you know what I mean. Unfortunately, I can't play you anything from that leaked recording, otherwise the video would be taken down faster than I can say HYENAS. All this is not to say that the underlying game will be bad. From what I have seen, it is a solid run-of-the-mill shooter, with even some interesting elements like fighting and navigating in zero gravity. But is that enough to make the game stick out from everything else that is out there? Together with the mess of a story and outright annoying characters and language? I got a bad feeling about this. Just watching the leaked footage made me want to punch the characters and especially the announcer. I mostly heard the doofus who wears a VR headset all the time, and just shut up about Drono. It's his special ability, he has a drone and he calls his drone Drono and keeps referencing it like every 30 seconds. You notice very clearly that the way of speaking comes from boomers trying to sound like the young people. And irregardless of what you try there, it just comes out cringe every time. You just can't win, so don't attempt it. But to the actual gameplay. You can clearly see it is based on Apex Legends movement. It is freer than a normal military shooter like Call of Duty, but it doesn't seem to have that extra thing that makes Apex Legends movement so enjoyable. Although I have to issue a big disclaimer here, we only saw gameplay of one player who didn't even notice that you have to charge your shields in such a game or put in armor plates a la Call of Duty, and also had a hard time navigating in 0G. So I can't really tell if the movement is a weaker version of Apex or if the player just wasn't that good. But I'm kind of leaning towards it's like Apex, but not quite as good. What I did notice is that the HUD and readability leaves something to be desired. As we mentioned, everything is extremely colorful, but yet also very sterile. Mirror's Edge has proven that this doesn't have to be a detriment to the game with its grandiose art style. And although everything was sterile yet colorful there, the developers managed to make the game world lead you and be easy to read without a HUD. HYENAS seems to run a bit contrary to that. In the leaked video we saw, the player himself comments that it is very difficult to find the right way. In contrast to Apex, Call of Duty and other battle royales, there is no shrinking wall that drives you together. HYENAS emphasized that it is not a battle royale, but it's kind of a battle royale. So having all teams run independently, not forcing them to actually meet, well, theoretically you can play a game without meeting the enemy. Just random bots that are on the map, so only meeting the E, not the other P. In Apex, power-ups like health and shield are really noticeable even at long range. The shape and color is memorable and unique to the game. In HYENAS, I could hardly make out what is health, shield and so on. It wasn't until the player ran up to it and you saw the name of it. This was not only due to the poor quality of the video. But there are upsides too. The level we've seen is very clean, as we pointed out, which would be good for readability if it wasn't so dark all the time. Despite of that, the characters are easy to spot and read in terms of shape. They really differ massively, which is good, because each character has different abilities, so you can easily tell what kind of opponent you are facing once you learned all the different heroes or hyenas. Let's quickly address the weapons. And here I wonder what the developers were thinking. It seems that the character you choose defines the weapon. In a game like Siege or Overwatch, I can understand that, but in HYENAS, where they break into ships and steal things, do you really want to limit this ragtag criminal to one weapon? What if you like a character's abilities, but don't like the weapon? Well, tough luck. But hey, at least you can have the gun you don't like in a bright neon yellow skin, so woo! In summary, the gameplay looks casual, a quirky run-of-the-mill shooter, not too special, only characterized by its, oh look, a Sonic character! You like Sonic, don't you? That's so vintage. It's so retro! Please buy us. Please give us attention. And again, on the subject of microtransactions, the game is being developed by a studio that sells a DLC for blood and gore in every Total Warhammer game. Yes, exactly. Frickin' Warhammer. A DLC for blood in Warhammer, where you have people praying to the blood god. Yeah, blood for the blood god. They call the DLC that way. And how the hell do you have a Warhammer game without blood? My god. Creativ Assembly, you used to be so good. What is SEGA forcing you to do? Blink twice if you need help. Do we want HYENAS to fail? No, of course not. It looks fine, might even be fun to play if you disable the characters' voices. But all we have seen really doesn't fill me with confidence. It's a bit like with Back 4 Blood, which despite numerous add-ons is slowly fizzling out and the player numbers are dying away. And just because a studio is big, no game is too big to fail. Anthem showed that. I mean, BioWare was working on that and it failed. I mean, BioWare, it's a big household name. And if BioWare is not above it, then Creativ Assembly absolutely is not either. So I'll leave you with that. They already really fumbled the game's announcement. Now they got to deliver with the actual game. And in the end, I'm curious to hear what you guys are thinking. I mean, the community response was rather negative. I mean, see for yourself. I got the dislikes add-on installed and I can see them. There they are. They didn't like it. Therefore, I'm curious to hear what you guys are thinking. The comment section is open. Share your thoughts down there. I'm curious to read them. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like, subscribe for future content, and if you absolutely love what we do, why not support us on Patreon, as our amazing supporters over there got to see this video well in advance. Those lovely people who chose to support us are Lone Wolf, Zed Gladys, Wrapped in Glass, Cookie, AX98, Theto, Vival556, Plasma, Tom, Rainbow Flash, Grizzly Bear, Strange Module, Cop Fighter, Inter, Charles Surrett, Sir K, Ramgilama, Zane, Whiskey, Christoph, MTD, Leggy Boy, Daniel, Freylem, Crony XS, and Grayling 2. To them and everyone else, thanks for watching. So, see you guys next time. Until then, have a nice day and as always, goodbye and guten Tag.